The drought that had struck the Okavango Delta in southern Botswana was unlike anything the region had experienced in living memory. Rivers that had flowed steadily for centuries had receded into cracked mud flats, and the verdant wetlands that had given the delta its name had withered into vast stretches of sun-bleached grass and dying trees. For the animals that had once thrived here, life had become a struggle for survival, marked by desperate migrations, violent territorial clashes, and profound loss. Amid this altered landscape moved Victoria, a lioness who was a mere shadow of the formidable leader she had once been. At 8 years old, she had ruled a pride of 12 lions over some of the richest hunting grounds in the Delta. Her name, meaning lion in Setswana, was earned through years of skillful leadership, raising multiple generations of cubs and maintaining a delicate balance of power that allowed her family to flourish in one of Africa's most competitive ecosystems. But the drought had destroyed everything she had built. As water sources dwindled and prey animals fled to distant refuges, territorial lines collapsed, and desperate prides engaged in brutal confrontations over the remaining resources. Victoria's pride had fallen victim to a coalition of younger, stronger lions from the north, led by two massive males whose territory had in turn been claimed by an even larger group. In the savage battle that followed, she lost her mate, her grown daughters, and all of her grandchildren in a single devastating afternoon. Now, she wandered alone through what had once been her kingdom, her golden coat dulled by dust, her usually proud posture weighed down by grief, so profound it seemed to radiate from her very bones. The landmarks of her former territory, the watering holes where her cubs had learned to drink, the shady groves where her pride had rested during the heat of the day, were now desolate, transformed into silent monuments to a life that no longer existed. Dr. Beverly John, the renowned wildlife filmmaker and conservationist who had documented lion behavior in the Okavango for more than 20 years, had been tracking Victoria's movements via GPS collar data since her pride's tragic dissolution. The readings depicted an animal in deep psychological distress, wandering seemingly aimlessly across vast distances, her roars weakening and becoming more desperate by the day. While Beverly had seen similar behaviors in other lionesses who had lost cubs or been expelled from their prides, Victoria's case was particularly severe. Lions are highly social creatures, and complete isolation is perhaps the cruelest punishment nature can impose. Many solitary females eventually lose the will to survive. On that particular morning, with the sun climbing relentlessly toward its zenith and temperatures soaring past 40 degrees Celsius, Victoria found herself in a region she had never explored before, driven by the desperate search for water that now dominated her existence. The landscape here differed from her familiar territory, dominated by enormous baobab trees whose ancient trunks rose like monumental sentinels from the cracked earth. Beneath one of these giants, Victoria first heard a sound that would alter her life forever. Initially, she thought it might be the wind rustling through the few remaining leaves, but as she drew closer, the sound revealed itself as a weak, plaintive cry of a baby in distress. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. Following the sound, Victoria discovered a sight that should have triggered every predatory instinct she possessed. Nestled in the meager shade of the baobab's massive roots was a baby elephant, no more than a few weeks old, his wrinkled gray skin already showing the dangerous effects of dehydration and exposure to the relentless sun. He was impossibly small, likely weighing no more than 60 kilograms. Yet even at that size, he was far larger than any prey Victoria would normally attempt alone. The baby elephant moved his tiny trunk weakly as he called for his mother, a sound brimming with desperate longing that bypassed Victoria's conscious mind and struck at something deeper, a dormant maternal instinct awakened since the loss of her own cubs. His dark, intelligent eyes met hers with a trust so innocent it seemed to demand protection. Every law of the African savanna dictated what should happen next. Lions and elephants were ancient adversaries. Adult elephants could kill even the strongest male lions with a single blow. Herds were fiercely protective, and any lion approaching a calf would face the wrath of the entire group. Yet this baby was alone, abandoned or lost, without a protective herd in sight. For a hungry lioness, He could have been a meal to sustain her for days. But as Victoria gazed down at the helpless creature, no predatory excitement stirred. No calculation of hunting strategy came to mind. Instead, she felt something she had not experienced since losing her pride. A surge of protective instinct rising from the deepest part of her being. Slowly and deliberately, she approached the baby elephant, moving with a gentleness that would astonish anyone familiar with lion behavior. Her massive paws, each armed with claws capable of tearing through hide and muscle, stepped carefully around him as she lowered her head to sniff his unfamiliar scent. The elephant did not flee. Instead, he lifted his small trunk toward her, the gesture elephants use to greet both kin and potential friends. In that moment, predator and prey formed a connection that transcended every evolutionary boundary between their species. Victoria instinctively recognized the baby elephant's peril. His loose skin and weak movements signaled severe dehydration. Without help, he would not survive another day under the brutal sun. Yet aiding him required a choice that defied millions of years of instinct. A choice to care for a creature that, by nature, should have been her enemy, as she had once nurtured her own cubs. Victoria began to groom him, her rough tongue gently removing dust and debris from his wrinkled skin. The act seemed to soothe him, and his cries gradually subsided as he pressed closer to her warmth. For the first time since losing her pride, Victoria felt the familiar stirrings of maternal hormones, now entirely focused on this impossible child. The immediate challenge was water. Victoria knew of a seasonal pool about 3 kilometers away, one of the few sources not yet dried completely by the drought. But the baby was far too weak to reach it on his own, and he was already larger than any cub she had once carried in her jaws. The solution demanded strength and ingenuity beyond what lions were thought capable of. Using a combination of gentle encouragement and physical support, Victoria coaxed the baby elephant to his feet. When he stumbled, she bore some of his weight, allowing him to lean against her as they began their slow, grueling trek through the scorching landscape. What should have been an hour-long journey stretched into 4 exhausting hours, punctuated by frequent rests in whatever shade they could find. Finally, they arrived at the muddy pool that represented survival, a reprieve from the relentless drought for both Lioness and baby elephant. Victoria watched with maternal pride as the baby elephant waded into the precious water and drank deeply. She had saved his life, but in doing so, she had committed herself to a path that would challenge every expectation about what was possible in the natural world. Dr. Rebecca Charlotte, a Botswana wildlife biologist who had studied elephants in the Delta for over a decade, was surveying the remaining water sources when she witnessed a scene that made her question her own perception. Through her binoculars, she saw what appeared to be a lioness standing guard while a baby elephant drank from an isolated pool. The sight was so contrary to everything she understood about African wildlife that she initially assumed it must be an unusual hunting tactic. But after watching for more than an hour, it became clear that the lioness was not hunting. Instead, she was protecting the calf, positioning herself between it and any potential threat, scanning the surroundings with the intensity of a mother guarding her own young. When the elephant finished drinking and began exploring the muddy shoreline, the lioness stayed close, ready to intervene if danger approached. Rebecca had heard local tales of improbable animal partnerships, but had dismissed them as folklore or misidentification. What she observed, however, challenged all her scientific training. A lioness not only refraining from harming a defenseless elephant, but actively caring for him, as if he were her own cub. As the afternoon sun reached its peak, Victoria led the baby elephant to a patch of shade beneath a cluster of fever trees. They settled there to escape the heat, and the calf, whom Victoria had begun to call Majesty, meaning hope, in the local language, curled against her side with complete trust, displaying the confidence of a young animal who had never feared predators. For Victoria, having this small life pressed against her offered a comfort she had not felt since losing her pride. The rhythmic breathing of the sleeping elephant, his warmth, and the simple fact of being needed again filled a void that had been consuming her entirely. As she rested in the dappled shade, listening to Majesty's gentle snores, Victoria began to envision a future she had never imagined. The challenges ahead were daunting. Baby elephants require vast amounts of milk and specialized care no lion could naturally provide. They grow quickly, learning complex social behaviors from experienced herd members. For the first several years, they depend entirely on their mothers for protection and guidance, demands that would push Victoria's abilities to the limit. Yet, watching Majesty rest safely under her protection, she resolved that she would rise to meet every challenge. Love had already accomplished the impossible by bringing them together. Now it would have to sustain them through trials neither species had ever faced. As evening brought relief from the day's heat, Victoria gently nudged Majesty awake and led him back to the water for another drink. Standing together at the pool's edge, watching the sunset over the transformed landscape, both the lioness and the elephant were changed. They had found in each other what had been lost to drought and territorial conflict, a family bond that transcended all natural boundaries. Yet the greatest tests were still ahead. News of their unprecedented partnership would soon reach scientists, conservationists, and park officials, who would have to decide whether to let it continue or intervene in the name of natural order. The love between a lioness and her adopted elephant son was about to face scrutiny from a world unprepared to believe in miracles. 3 months had passed since Victoria discovered Majesty under the baobab, and their partnership had evolved in ways that defied scientific understanding. Under Victoria's devoted care, the baby elephant had grown remarkably, nearly doubling in weight while learning to find water and vegetation. More importantly, he had developed the confidence and alertness of a young animal who had never known fear or abandonment. Majesty's growth introduced new challenges that tested Victoria's adaptability. At 4 months old, he now weighed over 100 kilograms and stood nearly a meter tall at the shoulder, far too large for Victoria to carry or physically control. Their relationship had to rely entirely on trust and communication rather than the physical dominance lions typically use with cubs. Fortunately, trust was abundant. Majesty followed Victoria everywhere, reading her body language and vocal cues with astonishing precision. He froze when she signaled danger, stayed close in difficult terrain, and respected the protective boundaries she established around their temporary shelter. In turn, Victoria adapted nearly every aspect of her behavior to Majesty's needs. Her usual hunting patterns, reliant on stealth and bursts of speed, gave way to a more cautious approach that kept her near her adopted son. She learned which plants and water sources elephants required, guiding Majesty to safe feeding areas and helping him avoid harmful vegetation. Most impressively, Victoria developed a sophisticated system of communication, using variations of growls and calls to convey information about threats, food, and movement. Majesty responded with trunk gestures and rumbles that Victoria interpreted with uncanny accuracy. Dr. Rebecca Charlotte had been documenting their relationship through hidden cameras and long-distance observation for 2 months. Her footage captured moments that challenged fundamental assumptions about maternal instinct, learning capacity, and interspecies boundaries. She observed Victoria teaching Majesty to mud bathe, demonstrating by rolling in the cool earth before encouraging him to mimic her actions. She saw the lioness standing guard while Majesty foraged, her attention unwavering against hyenas, wild dogs, and other predators who might see a young elephant as easy prey. Evening grooming sessions were equally remarkable, with Victoria meticulously cleaning Majesty's ears and eyes as she would have for her own cubs. Yet the relationship was not without challenges. As Majesty grew, his natural elephant behaviors sometimes conflicted with Victoria's feline instincts. Elephants feed destructively, using their trunks and tusks to break vegetation and strip bark. When Majesty began exhibiting these behaviors in their shared resting areas, Victoria's territorial instincts flared, creating tense moments that required negotiation. The first serious conflict occurred when Majesty, following his instincts, pushed against a dead tree near their favorite watering hole. The tree eventually crashed to the ground, and Victoria responded with a defensive crouch, signaling that she perceived danger. For several minutes, mother and son studied each other warily, Majesty confused by her reaction, Victoria unsure how to manage behavior that was natural for an elephant but potentially dangerous in their precarious situation. The tension between mother and son resolved when Majesty, displaying the emotional intelligence elephants are renowned for, approached Victoria with submissive body language and gently touched her face with his trunk. It was both an apology and a request for reassurance, and Victoria responded by grooming him affectionately, reaffirming the bond between them. Yet the episode highlighted the challenges they would face as Majesty matured and his natural elephant behaviors became more pronounced. Their greatest test came at the height of the dry season, when water sources dwindled to critical levels and competition across the delta intensified. A large pride of lions, displaced from their own territory by the drought, moved into the area where Victoria and Majesty had established their routine. The pride consisted of 3 adult males, 5 females, and 4 adolescent cubs, all hungry and desperate enough to confront any perceived threat to their survival. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. Victoria sensed their presence long before they arrived. Her keen sense of smell picked up their scent carried on the wind from kilometers away. But with Majesty's size and limited mobility, fleeing or hiding was not an option. For the first time since adopting her elephant son, Victoria faced a situation where her protective instincts alone might not suffice. At dawn, the pride approached the waterhole where Victoria and Majesty had spent the night. The lead male, a massive lion scarred from previous battles, spotted them from afar and immediately began his territorial display, roaring to assert dominance over the precious water. Majesty reacted instinctively, moving closer to Victoria, producing the low rumbling alarm calls elephants use to communicate danger. His trunk curled protectively around Victoria's neck, a gesture both tender and risky, as it restricted her movement. What followed became one of the most extraordinary examples of interspecies cooperation ever recorded, observed by Dr. Charlotte through her telephoto lens. Instead of fleeing or fighting, Victoria and Majesty acted in unison to form a united front that confused the approaching pride. Victoria positioned herself between Majesty and the lions, her posture conveying that any threat to the calf would have to go through her. Yet Majesty did not hide. He stood tall and began producing deep rumbling calls that adult elephants use to assert their presence. At only 4 months old, he was already imposing, and his vocalizations carried across the landscape with unexpected authority. The pride hesitated, puzzled by this display. Lions and elephants were natural enemies, but this defensive formation defied all patterns they recognized. The lionesses in particular were conflicted. Their maternal instincts resonated with Victoria's protective stance, while their predatory instincts warned them about the young elephant she defended. As Majesty neared his first birthday, new questions arose about the future of their relationship. Elephant calves normally rely on their mothers for several years to learn essential social behaviors and survival skills, knowledge Victoria could not fully provide. The issue of intervention became a topic of heated debate among conservationists and park officials. Some argued Majesty should be relocated to an elephant orphanage to ensure he learned proper species-specific behaviors and could eventually rejoin a wild herd. Others insisted that separating him from Victoria would destroy an unprecedented bond and a unique opportunity to study interspecies relationships. Dr. John, drawing on decades of experience, argued that the relationship should remain undisturbed. Victoria and Majesty had already demonstrated the ability to thrive together, and separating them would risk psychological trauma for both, while eliminating a singular insight into the adaptability of interspecies bonds. A compromise was reached. Victoria and Majesty could remain together, but their territory would be expanded to include areas with other elephants. This arrangement allowed Majesty to observe and interact with his own species while maintaining the security and continuity of his bond with Victoria. As the first rains of the wet season returned, transforming the delta from barren wasteland into lush paradise, Victoria and Majesty entered their second year together with both challenges and opportunities. Their love had already overcome obstacles that should have been impossible, yet greater tests awaited as Majesty matured and his elephant nature strengthened while he maintained his deep attachment to the lioness who had saved his life. The wet season brought abundance back to the Okavango, but it also shifted the balance of the ecosystem. Prey animals returned to their traditional ranges, and other lion prides re-established territories. Victoria would soon face a choice: reclaim her place within lion society, or continue her solitary life with the elephant son who had become her entire world. 7 years had passed since that fateful day under the baobab tree. Both their lives had been transformed in ways that continued to astonish the scientific community, leaving a legacy of interspecies loyalty and resilience that challenged every assumption about the natural world. Majesty had grown into a magnificent bull elephant, standing over 2.5 meters tall at the shoulder and weighing nearly 3 tons. His tusks, though not yet massive by adult standards, gleamed ivory white in the African sunlight, and his eyes reflected the intelligence and confidence of an animal who had never experienced fear or abandonment. Victoria, now 15, showed the natural signs of age that come with a life spent in the unforgiving African wilderness. Silver streaks had appeared around her muzzle, and her movements carried the deliberate grace and dignity of a lioness who had accomplished something extraordinary. She remained strong and alert, but the years spent adjusting her life to protect and guide a growing elephant had left their marks on her powerful frame. Their relationship had transformed from the intense dependency of Majesty's early years into something richer and more complex. A partnership between two mature animals who had chosen to remain together despite every pressure from nature and human intervention to separate them. As Majesty grew too large for Victoria to offer physical protection, their bond deepened into emotional support and companionship, transcending the boundaries of species. Dr. Beverly John, now internationally recognized for her work documenting their story, had spent 7 years observing how their relationship challenged long-held assumptions about animal behavior. Her research revealed that Majesty possessed social skills and emotional intelligence unmatched among elephants, while Victoria had developed communication abilities and adaptive behaviors that went far beyond typical feline capabilities. Remarkably, their story began influencing conservation policy across southern Africa. Wildlife rehabilitation programs had begun experimenting with cross-species fostering, inspired by Victoria and Majesty, with promising results, extending their legacy beyond their own extraordinary bond. Yet as Majesty entered full maturity, the greatest challenge of their relationship emerged. Bull elephants naturally leave their maternal herds between ages 12 and 15 to lead solitary lives or join bachelor groups. Hormonal changes were beginning to affect Majesty, generating restlessness and behaviors that even 7 years of love and adaptation could not fully contain. The first signs appeared during breeding season, when he responded intensely to distant calls from wild elephant herds. He would stand motionless for hours, ears spread wide to catch faint sounds on the wind, his trunk testing the air, reacting to instincts deeper than any training or learned behavior. During these episodes, he seemed almost oblivious to Victoria's presence. Victoria watched these changes with the wisdom of a mother who understood that love sometimes requires letting go. She had noticed Majesty's fascination with wild herds, how his attention lingered on the social dynamics that she could see but never fully comprehend. Most painfully, she realized that her presence occasionally limited his ability to interact naturally with his own species, as wild elephants kept their distance while she was near. The decisive moment came during a chance encounter with a large elephant herd led by an ancient matriarch named Nelly. The herd had entered their territory during the peak of the dry season, drawn to the reliable water source Victoria and Majesty had claimed. Among them was a young female named Casey, roughly Majesty's age, whose graceful movements and intelligent demeanor immediately captured his attention. For 3 days, Majesty remained at the edge of the herd's range, respecting the distance Victoria's presence demanded while clearly fascinated by what he observed. Victoria watched as her adopted son wrestled with instincts she could sense but could not fulfill. When Casey began showing mutual interest, approaching as closely as she dared to the boundary marked by Victoria's scent, the lioness recognized that a moment of decision had arrived. On the 4th morning, Victoria made a choice that would demonstrate the depth of her love. She withdrew to a distant hilltop, allowing Majesty to approach the herd without her imposing presence. From this vantage point, she watched him take his first tentative steps toward the life he had been born to lead. The herd initially reacted with caution, but not hostility. Nelly, the wise matriarch, seemed to recognize something special in the young bull. Majesty's approach was respectful and non-threatening, showing the social intelligence Victoria had instilled in him despite her feline nature. He displayed none of the aggressive posturing typical of young bulls raised in traditional elephant society. Casey was the first to accept him, greeting him with the careful trunk touches elephants use for social assessment. Majesty responded with perfect etiquette, and gradually the rest of the herd relaxed. Within hours, he had integrated seamlessly, astonishing Dr. John and her team who observed the entire interaction from hidden positions. Yet Majesty did not forget the lioness who had nurtured him. Throughout his first day with the herd, he frequently looked toward the hilltop, where Victoria maintained her distant watch. As evening approached and the herd prepared to settle, Majesty made a decision that became one of the most poignant moments in wildlife research. He left the herd and climbed the hill to Victoria. Their reunion transcended species boundaries, expressing the universal language of familial love. Majesty knelt, bringing his massive head to Victoria's level, and wrapped his trunk gently around her neck in an embrace that lasted several minutes. Victoria responded with the tender grooming she had shown him as a calf, marking him with her scent one final time. Their farewell was neither dramatic nor prolonged. Both seemed to understand it was not an ending, but a transformation. Majesty touched his trunk to Victoria's forehead in a gesture of gratitude and blessing, then turned and returned to the herd that would become his new family. The next morning, the herd departed, following their ancient migratory routes through the delta, with Majesty fully integrated. Victoria remained on her hilltop for 3 days, watching the horizon where they had disappeared before finally returning to the territory she had shared with her adopted son for 7 remarkable years. In the months that followed, wildlife cameras and GPS tracking confirmed that Majesty had successfully adapted to elephant society while retaining the unique traits of his unusual upbringing. He displayed extraordinary diplomacy in herd conflicts, remarkable tolerance toward younger elephants, and a level of cross-species awareness that set him apart from other bulls his age. Most notably, he sought out interactions with lions, showing none of the typical fear or aggression toward them. While he never lived with lions as he had with Victoria, his presence appeared to calm both species, reducing tension in overlapping territories. Victoria's life after Majesty's departure surprised researchers who expected her to struggle with the transition back to solitary life. Instead, she seemed to find peace, reassured that her extraordinary son was thriving among his own kind. She remained in their shared territory, the landscape echoing the years of love, sacrifice, and growth that had defined their extraordinary bond. Now a respected elder, Victoria carried the wisdom of her years, her hunting prowess, and deep knowledge of the land, making her a vital presence in the ecosystem. 2 years after their separation, the reunion that the wildlife community had long awaited finally occurred. Majesty, now fully grown and accompanied by Kessie and their first calf, returned to the territory where he had spent his early years. The encounter between Victoria and her adopted son, now a father himself, was captured by Dr. John's cameras and quickly became one of the most widely viewed wildlife videos ever recorded. The recognition between them was immediate and profoundly moving. Despite 2 years apart and the dramatic changes in their lives, Majesty approached Victoria with the same gentle reverence he had displayed as a calf. He introduced Kessie and their newborn to the lioness who had raised him, and for one unforgettable hour, 3 generations of an extraordinary, cross-species family shared the shade of the baobab tree where it had all begun. Victoria groomed the baby elephant with the same tender care she had once shown Majesty, while Kessie observed with the respect and curiosity of a daughter-in-law meeting a beloved mother-in-law. Majesty, as ever, stood watch over them all, his massive presence ensuring that this precious reunion could unfold in safety, free from threat or interruption. When it came time for the elephant family to rejoin their herd, the farewell was gentle and unhurried. All participants seemed to intuitively understand that this was not an ending, but a reaffirmation that love can transcend time, distance, and species. Majesty touched his trunk to Victoria's forehead one final time, a blessing exchanged silently, before leading his family back to their life among the elephants. In the years following that reunion, Majesty returned annually to visit Victoria, each time accompanied by new additions to his growing family. The bond they shared became legendary in conservation circles, inspiring efforts to protect the habitats that make such extraordinary relationships possible and reshaping how humans perceive the emotional lives of wild animals. Dr. John's final research paper on their story, published when Majesty was 10 and Victoria approached the end of her natural life, concluded with reflections that captured the essence of what she had witnessed. In 7 years documenting Victoria and Majesty's relationship, I have learned that love is not a human invention, but a universal force that operates throughout the natural world. What we observed between a lioness and her adopted elephant son was not an anomaly. It was a glimpse into the true nature of life itself, the capacity for caring that transcends every boundary we believe divides us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. As the African sun sets over the Okavango Delta each evening, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson that echo Victoria's aging coat, their story continues to resonate. Majesty's descendants carry forward the wisdom, patience, and tolerance their grandfather learned from the lioness who chose love over instinct. Meanwhile, Victoria's legacy lives on in the conservation programs her story inspired. What began as an improbable rescue grew into something far greater, a testament to the transformative power of maternal love, not only in the lives of individual animals, but in our understanding of family and connection in the natural world. That day beneath the baobab tree, Victoria saved more than a dying baby elephant. She restored faith in the possibility that love can overcome all, even in the harsh and beautiful African wilderness. Their story reminds us that, in a world often divided by difference and conflict, the deepest truths about connection, care, and devotion can emerge in the most unexpected places, in the heart of a lioness who chose to mother an elephant, and in the gratitude of an elephant who never forgot the love that saved him and shaped his soul.